A silver mist drifts across the waters of Lake Titicaca. It clings to the reed beds. It swirls around fishermen's canoes as though drawn by an unseen hand. In the dim dawn light, shapes emerge on the far shore. Figures carved from memory. Figures that answer to a name older than any empire. Viracocha. He is not a man. He is the first, the shaper of earth, the bringer of sun, the breath that stirs mountain and valley alike. His footsteps echo in cracking glaciers and in the laughter of children who watch llamas graze. Yet his true form remains hidden, half glimpsed in lightning strikes, in soaring condors, in the trembling earth itself. This is a story of beginnings, of fire kindled in caves beneath snow-capped peaks, of turquoise halls where priests whispered ancient prayers, of a people who built roads across razor-edged ridges, guided by the promise of that first creator. And it is a story that carries forward, carried by wind and rain. It lives in carved pillars at Ollantaytambo and glimmers in the festival fires of Cusco. It endures in the soft murmur of Andean streams. Tonight, slip into that world. Let the mist draw you closer. Listen for the first whisper of creation. And remember to like and subscribe. If you feel the pull of these ancient echoes, join us as we journey into the heart of Viracocha's legacy.
We are the echoes of what was, what will be.
A lone reed boat drifts. Its traveler leans forward, bundle of woven straw at his feet. He listens. A distant rumble, soft as a heartbeat, rolls beneath the mirror surface of Lake Titicaca. He runs calloused fingers across the wooden prow. The grain is smooth from generations of hands. Above him, condors trace the sky, their wings like broad brushstrokes against morning light. The traveler closes his eyes. He senses something shift beneath him. The air shivers, a hollow breath drawn by unseen lungs. The water parts, revealing stone steps that descend into dark water. He grips the paddle and guides the boat forward towards shapes half seen through the shifting fog. These ruins predate memory, foundations laid before the first corn took root. He steps onto slick stone and feels the pulse of the earth run up through his sandals. He traces a carving, a mask face, eyes like twin suns, mouth curved in a silent song. The lines converge on a central point, as though all paths lead to this threshold. He kneels, pressing his palm flat. The cold gray stone warms to his touch. A whisper slides across his mind, not in words, but in feeling. I was here. The traveler's breath catches. He stands and turns, but sees only emptiness. No priest, no guide, no companion. Only swirling mist and the slow turning of the world. At the water's edge, a ripple spreads. It coalesces into a form, tall, lithe, limbs long as river reeds. Cloaked in shimmering light, the shape rises. A face, refined, yet neither young nor old, stares through the haze. Eyes deep and dark. They hold no judgment, only gentle command. Viracocha. Time bends. The traveler's heart hammers. He lowers his gaze, then lifts it again. The figure steps forward, stride silent and steady across the stones. With each footfall, the mist retreats, revealing more of a vast courtyard carved from the living rock. Pillars capped with soaring wings, bas-reliefs of warriors, of sun-haunted kings, of mothers offering clay pots to the horizon. A single step between them. The traveler senses tremors beneath his feet, a memory unspooling, long before Cusco shaped stories, long before gold glinted in sunlit plazas, before any spoke the first syllable of Inca. Viracocha stops at the edge of a circular pool. He kneels, cupping water in his massive hands. He lifts it to the sky. Sunlight fractures through droplets, casting prisms across his face. And then he tilts his head back and drinks. Thunder rumbles. The traveler flinches. In that moment, the world shivers, and so does his own sense of what is possible. The figure stands. He looks at the traveler, and the traveler knows he is seen, not as a mortal doubter, but as a witness, a vessel for a tale older than stone. Viracocha steps onto the carved steps, ascending toward the sky. Each step seems less part of the earth and more part of the horizon itself. Before he vanishes into the haze, he reaches into his cloak. His fingers close around a handful of dust, fine as powdered light. He lets it slip through his grasp. It drifts across the traveler's face, warm as a benediction. And then he is gone. Silence falls. The traveler exhales. The reed boat waits for him, patiently bobbing. He turns back, clutching the dust in his palm. A gift from the Maker, a promise of stories to come. He descends the steps, retracing his path across the stones. The ripples in the water settle. The mist returns, embracing the ruins once more. But the traveler now carries a spark, an ember lit by the first creator. He boards the boat. He pushes off. With each stroke, the image of that figure lingers at the water's edge. He closes his eyes, feeling the weight of the dust warm against his palm. The wind catches his hair. It carries a whisper, soft, insistent, remember. And so his journey begins, not on maps drawn by conquering hands, not in annals of kings, but in the quiet beating of one human heart, echoing the first breath of creation itself. Dawn breaks in silent hues of rose and gold over the high plateau. A winding trail snakes along the foothills of snow-capped peaks, carved by centuries of pilgrims seeking blessings and omens. At the trail's head, Viracocha appears once more, a silhouette against the rising sun. His cloak, woven from shadows and light, flutters in the thin air. He carries no staff, no banners, only the weight of beginnings in each sure footstep. Villagers stir in scattered hamlets. Smoke drifts from cooking fires. Llamas huddle in corrals. Children, cheeks flushed from mountain chills, peer through doorways. They have heard the tales. A god made flesh, walking among mortals. Some clutch shrunken idols made of clay. Others whisper prayers to statues on their doorposts. All await his passing. As Viracocha descends the ridge, a hush falls over the land. The wind stills. Even the condors pause, suspended in effortless glide. With each step, stone walls seem to straighten. Fields stretch into neat terraces that tumble like emerald staircases into the valley below. The sun, just a bright coin in the sky, gilds the edges of that world as though everything exists to honor this passage. He arrives at a simple shrine, a rectangular enclosure of unworked stones with a single doorway facing east. A priest stands guard, leather tunic worn thin by endless rituals. He bows, though Viracocha's eyes never rest upon him. Instead, the god drifts through the doorway and into a chamber of lamplight and incense, where incense smolders in shallow bowls. Inside, offerings lie on low benches: maize, quinoa, coca leaves, gouged gourds of chicha. The air tastes of sweetness and heat. The priest kneels again and extends hands filled with golden kernels. They gleam like captive suns. But Viracocha does not touch them. He glides past, examining the rough-hewn walls where painted glyphs trace the paths of stars. He tilts his head, listening to whispers encoded in ochre and charcoal. Amid the glyphs, a line stands out, a spiral unfurling toward the heavens. The priest swallows. "Master, I have honored you," he murmurs. "Accept this." Viracocha reaches out, fingers cupping one maize kernel as if it were the world itself. He holds it against his chest. His torso expands, breath filling the chamber. Then he releases the grain. It tumbles back to the bench, unbroken, but now suffused with a soft glow. The priest's eyes widen. Beyond the shrine's threshold, a trembling begins. The temple stones hum like coiled metal. Outside, villagers gather, drawn by a low resonance vibrating through their bones. Dogs lift heads, ears twitching. Birds burst from eaves, spiraling into the air. Viracocha steps back into the sunlight. He gazes across the valley, across that sea of tilled fields and human toil. He lifts his arms. The wind answers, rising in sudden gusts that snap banners and ruffle cloaks. Clouds gather, swollen and heavy. Over the distant ridge, thunder mutters, slow, deliberate. The villagers kneel in open fields. They shield eyes against sudden glare, as though the sun itself were intensifying to match Viracocha's presence. In that brilliance, the god's form seems to shimmer and blur, as though he occupies multiple planes of being at once. A bolt of lightning splits the sky. It strikes a lone ceibo tree on a distant hillside, igniting its branches in a cascade of sparks. The thunder crashes again, echoing through valleys and ridges. Yet in the eyes of Viracocha, there is no triumph, only purpose. He turns and walks away. With each step, the thunder's roar softens. The light dims to its usual warmth. The villagers remain prostrate, cocooned in their awe. The shrine stands unchanged, but for the soft glow still pulsing within its walls. Viracocha treads onward, crossing rivers that gleam like liquid silver. Fish dart beneath the surface, scattering at his approach. He pauses at each ford, as though blessing the water with a silent word. The villagers watch him disappear behind a bend in the path, their hearts echoing the residue of that power. Night falls swiftly in the high Andes. Torches flicker in hamlet courtyards. Under low-slung clouds, travelers huddle in shelters of stone and thatch. Yet, somewhere beyond the flicker, a lantern of existence continues its solitary journey. Viracocha's silhouette slips across slopes blanketed in tinted lavender. His destination is not yet known. He ascends again, climbing through reaches where air thins and sky stretches farther than any eye can trace. Each footstep raises a swirl of dust that drifts in the lamplight of distant moons. At the highest pass, he stops. He looks back at the world he has traversed, a tapestry of human striving, of fields and temples, of laughter and lament. He closes his eyes. In that stillness, he communes with hidden forces, the bedrock of the earth, the breath of the winds, the hidden rivers beneath glaciers. He listens, then he breathes out. A tremor ripples through mountain and meadow alike. Every slope seems to sigh, as though acknowledging what stands above them. Viracocha draws his cloak tight and resumes his descent. Below, the lights of a city sparkle like captive stars. This is Cuzco, heart of a rising civilization, ringed by walls of immense stones. Spires and plazas form a labyrinth that whispers with the footsteps of courtiers, warriors, and artisans. He steps into the outskirts, where stonecutters chip granite into massive blocks. Sparks fly from metal chisels. Sweat bubbles on brow and beard. They pause, staring. Without word or gesture, Viracocha moves among them, examining the geometry of their work. He places a hand on a half-finished block. It skitters across the ground, perfect in its shape. He walks deeper into the city, past bustling markets where merchants barter for gold dust and dyed textiles, past children playing games with carved discs, past men and women weaving elaborate patterns on backstrap looms. At the city's heart, he comes upon a plaza ringed by colossal pillars crowned with winged guardians. A statue of the sun glints atop the highest pillar. Priests in crimson robes conduct a ritual around a brazier of smoldering juniper. Incense curls upward, mingling with the scent of earth and offerings. Viracocha steps into the circle. The priests pause mid-chant, their bodies bowed. One extends a bowl of consecrated water. He spills it onto the stones at Viracocha's feet. The liquid sinks through cracks and fissures, as though the earth itself drinks in this consecration. The god bows his head. His cloak parts, revealing woven bands of sapphire and onyx. Tied at his waist, a simple cord of llama sinew holds a pouch. It bulges with seeds, seeds that will become fields, forests, lineages of life. With a fluid motion, Viracocha reaches into the pouch. He sprinkles handfuls of seeds across the plaza. Each seed lands with purpose. In cracks between stones, at the base of pillars, in the dust stirred by chanting feet. The seeds settle. They glow faintly before disappearing into the earth. A single beat of silence. Then a sprout pierces a stone slab and unfurls a single leaf. It glistens like dew-kissed emerald. The priests exhale as if waking from deep dreams. The plaza hums with energy. Cuzco itself seems to pulse in recognition. Without a backward glance, Viracocha steps away. He moves toward the city's edge, where salt pans glimmer in the evening light. The horizon embraces him. Beyond lie desert plains and coastal lowlands. Beyond lie distant seas that will one day bear strangers in strange ships. He pauses at the crest of the last hill, looking out. Cusco's fires flicker below. Tomorrow, the world will resume. Stonecutters will chisel, merchants will haggle, children will laugh. But tonight, the pattern has been reforged. The seeds of the future have been sown. Viracocha disappears into the gathering dusk. The wind rises behind him, carrying loose soil and half-buried memories. The first light of a new age settles over the land, woven by invisible hands. And so the wanderer continues, beyond shrine, beyond city, beyond horizon. He moves ever onward, guided by a purpose older than any name, to shape a world from nothing and to leave behind the spark of creation in every human heart. A pale light brushes the jagged peaks, a silent prelude to a day of transformation. Viracocha stands at the threshold of an ancient quarry where stone faces rise like sleeping giants. The air tastes of dust and promise. Hands scarred by time grip chisels of bronze and stone. Men and women, carvers, haulers, visionaries, move in unison, their breath a steady drumbeat against the towering walls. He watches. In their sweat, he sees the future. In their rhythmic strikes, he hears a song older than any chant. Each blow shapes not just rock, but destiny itself. The quarry floor shivers under the weight of massive blocks, blocks destined to become palaces, temples, thrones of empire. Viracocha steps forward. His cloak parts, revealing arms strong and sure. He lifts a chisel fine as a reed and sets its edge to a granite face. With a breath, he strikes. The chisel sinks smoothly, carving a perfect line. Onlookers pause, eyes wide. The granite flake slices free, falling at their feet like a piece of spilled moonlight. A murmur ripples through the crowd. The master carver, a woman whose hands guide hammers as though born from stone, approaches. She studies the cut, running her fingers along its crisp edge. She nods. Reverence flickers in her eyes. Viracocha steps back. He lifts his hand, and the crowd shifts as one. A single block, half-hewn, trembles. Lines drawn by mortal hands glow faintly, then intensify. The block slides free from its bedrock cradle, drifting across the quarry floor with impossible grace. It tilts upright, balanced on a corner, then rights itself and turns toward the rising sun. Silence reigns. Only the wind stirs, carrying the sharp scent of chipped stone and crushed herbs. The block basks in dawn light as though alive, its facets gleaming like living facets of the mountain. Then, with a gentle rumble, the quarry floor heaves. The ground itself seems to sigh, acknowledging something deep within. A network of hidden veins, ancient fractures filled with mineral whispers, awakens. A faint hum spirals outward, weaving through every axe stroke, every woven basket, every heartbeat. Viracocha steps away, allowing the quarry to reclaim its song. The hum fades into the steady work of mortals once more. But the people feel it, an ember of something vast kindling in their chests. Their shoulders straighten, their arms strengthen, their hammer strikes ring truer. He walks among them, pausing at the side of those who haul. Ropes coil around great prisms. Teams of llama and men strain together, muscles taut as bowstrings. Viracocha places a hand on the lash of a lead llama. It trembles and then rests its head against his palm, soft and trusting. The handlers bow, tears gathering beneath sun-bright eyes. He moves on, ascending a slender ramp of packed earth. From this vantage, the quarry reveals itself. Terraces carved into the mountainside, each level a terrace of possibility. Granite blocks rest on scaffolds of wood and vines. A labyrinth of wooden cranes and pulleys arcs across the sky like mechanical constellations. Workers chant a low refrain, a cadence to steady their efforts. Viracocha closes his eyes. He breathes in, air thin and sharp, alive with promise. The world hums beneath his feet, a symphony of stone and sinew, of mortal will and divine spark. He imagines the quarry stones shaped into plazas and palaces, into corridors where light and shadow dance in poetic embrace. He sees temples in which candles flicker like captive stars, casting silhouettes of winged guardians across polished floors. The sun climbs higher. Dust motes swirl like captive fireflies. Sweat beads on brows and drips onto packed earth. Viracocha lowers a massive block with the ease of a breath. It settles into place on a raised platform. Mortals who guide ropes exchange stunned glances. Then they cheer, their voices rolling across the heights like thunder. He offers no words. None are needed. The quarry is alive with new rhythm, a rhythm born of divine presence and mortal devotion. The stones, once inert, have become partners in a grand design. As the day reaches its zenith, Viracocha departs the quarry. He steps onto a narrow path that winds like a serpent through thickets of ichu grass. Below, ravines cleave the mountain slope, their depths shadowed and cool. He descends, leaving behind the world of stone and hammer, and enters a world shaped by fire. Blackened kilns crouch amid tufts of grass. Clay and ore lie heaped in shallow pits. Potters and smiths bend over furnaces where flames lick the undersides of ceramic vessels and copper ingots. Sparks rise in quicksilver arcs. The air tastes of molten earth. A potter holds a freshly molded bowl. Her fingers coax its curves. She carves a spiral motif, an echo of the glyphs Viracocha first traced on that misty shore. The bowl glows in the firelight, its clay body hardened by divine breath. The smith cools a blade in a basin of water. Steam rises in hisses as though the mountain itself exhales. Viracocha places a dagger, mere hours old, on a stone slab. Heat recedes, the metal still hums. He lifts it, examines the veined patterns of quench lines. He nods, then traces a finger along the edge. It cuts the air like a whisper. The smith kneels, eyes shining. The wanderer moves deeper into the workshop. He raises a hand, and embers lift from the furnace as though drawn upward by invisible strings. They swirl around his palm, casting flickering patterns on his face. For a moment, he is a forge of living flame, both maker and fire itself. He lowers his hand. The embers scatter into the darkness, sparked seeds of artistry. The workers lean forward, absorbing the glow. In that light, their craft reaches beyond necessity. It becomes poetry. Viracocha steps away, and the kiln mouths settle back into steady blaze. Clay vessels advance along lines of vision. Copper forms into tools and ornaments, and the world of fire reshapes itself under mortal hands. He emerges at the edge of a vast plain, the Puna grassland stretching to distant horizons. Herds of vicuña and guanaco graze in scattered clusters. He pauses, breath catching at the expanse. Here, earth and sky merge in austere beauty. Here, creation feels infinite. From within his cloak, he draws a handful of seeds, barley and amaranth, lupin and quinoa. He tosses them into the wind. They scatter like specks of light, settling in tufts of grass, in rocky crevices. He places his foot on the ground and life stirs. Tiny green shoots emerge at his touch, unfurling even as he watches. A breeze rises. Grasses sway in gentle arcs. Birds wheel overhead. The plain pulses with a subtle joy. For the first time, the wanderer allows himself a small smile. Night descends. Stars blaze in the clear air, more numerous than any memory can hold. He stands alone beneath that celestial tapestry. The land below him, once rigid and untamed, now hums with the momentum of human hands and divine inspiration. Every quarry carved, every kiln fired, every field seeded, each a testament to his wanderings. He kneels and cups earth in his hands. It is cool and yielding. He breathes in its scent, mineral and life. Then he rises, drawn onward by a purpose relentless and pure. Ahead lies a canyon whose walls are etched with labyrinthine shadows. Within it rests the newborn bones of a city, the heart of a mountain carved from mountain itself. There, Viracocha's imprint will deepen. There, mortals will shape their faith and their future from the bones of the earth. He steps forward into deepening gloom, leaving behind the terraces and kilns. Behind him, the Puna sings with life he has sown. Before him, the canyon awaits, with secrets and promise bundled in its silent stones. And so, the divine wanderer continues, forging not only the land, but the souls of those who walk upon it. In every quarry and kiln, every field and plain, his presence hums beneath the hammer strike, the potter's wheel, and the sprouting shoot, a living testament to creation's enduring song.
Witness the dawn of creation, as light itself weaves the sacred spiral.
Dawn's light seeps through drifting banked clouds, turning them honeyed pink. A thin path winds upward along the mountain's spine, its stones polished smooth by countless footsteps. At its crest lies a plateau suspended between sky and earth. Here, the air tastes of thinness and reverence. Here, mortals build their prayer to the heavens. Viracocha arrives as the first torch flames ignite in the nascent gloom. The foundations of a great temple sprawl before him, massive terraces of cut stone rising like steps to the sky. On each terrace, workers haul blocks the size of oxen, their breaths ragged in the rarefied air. They chant softly, a breath-forged rhythm that echoes between cloud and rock. He steps onto the lowest terrace. The stones there bear carvings, winged serpents coiling around sun disks, figures with arms raised to catch starlight. He reaches out, tracing a glyph with a fingertip. The rock pulses beneath his touch. The workers pause, sensing his gaze. Some bow, others simply lower their tools, awestruck. Above them, wooden scaffolds bridge the terraces. Ropes cradle blocks as men in starched tunics guide pulleys. Each pulley squeaks in careful protest. The giant stones sway, then settle into place with a resonance like distant thunder. Mortals step back, wiping sweat and sharing relieved smiles. Viracocha ascends. His cloak parts in the crisp breeze, revealing a silhouette carved of sky and stone. He pauses at the edge of a freshly laid lintel, face turned upward toward an aperture in the next terrace. He draws in a breath, and the aperture glows faintly with unspent dawn. He steps through. Inside, a dim corridor stretches beyond sight. Torches line the walls, but the air remains half-formed, as though the chamber awaits its final breath of life. Workers inside pause their chiseling and mud plastering. Clay dust hovers in golden motes around their shoulders. They glance at one another, as if questioning the boundary between God and guide. Viracocha's footsteps are silent. He moves to the chamber's heart, a circular alcove cut into living rock. Here, stones coalesce around a central pillar, hewn with spirals that rise like smoke. Atop the pillar, a niche holds a solitary object, a disc of polished black obsidian, rimmed in gold so thin it seems spun from sunlight. He kneels before it. His reflection shimmers on the obsidian surface, an echo of self that ripples with whispered possibility. He places both hands on the stone and closes his eyes. The corridor walls emit a low hum, resonating with the beating of mortal hearts beyond. The hum deepens. Torches flare in unison. Shadows dance, elongating into shapes of winged guardians and stooped priests. The obsidian disc warms under Viracocha's palms. He breathes out, and the disc spins as though caught in hidden currents. Its surface glints, then slows until it rests, perfectly still. He stands and turns. The chamber fills with light, not from torches, but from the stone itself. Vones of golden mica woven into the walls shimmer as the rays pierce through hidden fissures. The alcove transforms, no longer a mere corridor, but a living vessel of dawn. Intricate murals painted in iron-rich reds and plant-based blues emerge from the dim, their figures stirring as though newly awakened. Outside, the terraces exhale in a collective murmur. The sky's clouds shift, parting to reveal a shaft of sunlight that strikes the obsidian disc through the aperture above. A beam of pure light arcs down into the chamber, illuminating the carvings with crystalline intensity. Viracocha steps back, and the disc cools. He turns, meeting the eyes of the high priest, a figure draped in coca leaf crowns and llama fur robes. The priest's breath catches as if in prayer. He bows, offering a bowl of sacred water drawn from snowmelt. Viracocha accepts it, letting droplets fall onto the cool stone floor. They pool in each spiral of the pillar, then vanish, drawn into the bedrock as though swallowed by time itself. With a nod, the priest retreats. The light fades. The chamber returns to its soft radiance. Workers resume their tasks, but their eyes remain drawn to the alcove. In the hush, They realize they have become part of something greater, a living temple that occupies the liminal space between earth and sky. Viracocha ascends again, stepping onto the uppermost terrace. Here, columns of Inca granite stand in rows, roofless and awaiting final beams. He runs his hand along their surfaces, smooth as river stones, cold as glacier melt. He lifts his gaze to the mountaintops around, peaks crowned in snow, guardians of that sacred plateau. From each peak, a faint echo drifts across the terraces, wind through stringed reeds, the distant cry of a condor, the low rumble of shifting ice. He closes his eyes. A vision unfolds. Shadowed valleys converging upon this terrace, pilgrims carrying offerings, priests leading chants, llamas adorned in tassels of vivid wool. He senses the temple's future life, festivals of light where torches blaze like captive suns, harvest celebrations where quinoa and maize are woven into tapestries of thanks, nights when moonlight pools in the alcove and the obsidian disk mirrors cosmic truths. He breathes deep and steps forward. The wind picks up. Clouds swirl in spirals around him. A cluster of carved stones breaks away from the assembled columns and drifts into place as if guided by an unseen current. Mortals gasp and kneel, but Viracocha does not look back. At the terrace's rim, he stands before a chasm that plunges into low-hanging clouds. Beyond, distant valleys yawn into green depths. Hidden rivers glint like mercury threads. Far below, the world carries on. Villages and fields, trails and quarries, kilns and altars, each echoing his earlier wanderings. From within his cloak, he draws a slender reed carved with glyphs of creation. He plants it at the terrace's edge. It sinks into the soil, and immediately a shoot unfurls, tall as a man, leaves broad like tablets of living text. Its tendrils wrap around the gilt rim of the obsidian disk, anchoring the temple's sacred heart to living wood. The reed's blossoms open, revealing petals of moon-white stone. They glimmer softly, casting a faint glow that radiates outward. Clouds part further, and the first full sun floods the terrace. The petals turn toward the light, petals of living stone mingled with living breath. Viracocha steps back into the rising glare. His form flickers, half seen in the brilliance. He lifts a hand in farewell. The temple hums with life, stone singing, wood breathing, reed and disk in quiet accord. He turns from that hallowed sight. Behind him, the plateau stands transformed, a living sanctuary poised between mountain and heavens, a testament to human devotion and divine spark. Below, pilgrims begin the winding climb, their prayers rising like incense. As Viracocha descends once more, the temple remains, a weightless monument to creation, resting on the shoulders of clouds. And in every carved glyph, in every sunlit pillar, in every reed blossom of living stone, his presence endures, an eternal whisper in the air above Andean heights. The river bends like a ribbon of molten bronze, gliding through a valley cloaked in terraces. Maize fields sway in rows so precise they appear summoned rather than sown. Cusco gleams at the heart of it all, a city built as if sketched by the sun itself. Roads unfurl from its center like rays, stretching toward jungle, sea, and snow. Here, the empire breathes. Not yet the sprawling Inca realm it would become, but already pulsing with rhythm and power. Stone walls fit so tightly, no blade slips between them. Markets teem with color. Textiles dyed from insects and flowers. Gourds carved with constellations. Golden figures of birds mid-flight. Priests chant beneath porticos as nobles pass in headdresses shimmering like fire. Viracocha stands in the shadow of the temple wall, watching. Children laugh, chasing wheel toys across the plaza. Women pour water into ceramic jars, their motions as fluid as the river itself. Warriors practice with wooden clubs, their strikes echoing off stone. Above them all, the Temple of the Sun rises, a fortress of light. Its outer walls are lined with sheets of beaten gold, so bright they glow even in shade. He steps into the plaza, feet still dusty from the mountains. The crowd hushes. For a breath, all movement ceases. Then, without signal, people kneel, not in panic, not in worship, but in quiet awe. They do not cry out. They do not flee. They simply lower their heads, as if recognizing the force behind everything they have built. Viracocha ascends the temple steps. Each step is carved with sacred forms: pumas, condors, serpents. 3 realms in harmony: the sky, the earth, the underworld. He pauses at the threshold where golden doors stand open. Inside, a chamber glows with reflected light. Gold walls, gold floors, golden effigies of ancestors and gods. A solar disk hangs above the altar, so polished it captures the sun whole. He walks to the center, places a hand on the altar stone. Its warmth greets him, not from the sun, but from within. A pulse, rhythmic and slow, like a living heart. The stone remembers. It has held offerings, blood, fire, tears. It has heard prayers whispered and screamed. It knows every name spoken into its silence. He breathes. Outside, trumpets sound. Shells spiral up with a call that cuts through cloud. From every direction, processions approach. Dancers in jaguar skins, priests bearing woven standards, emissaries from distant valleys. They enter the plaza in winding lines, colors spinning as skirts flare and feathers tremble. The air thickens with incense. Drums begin, a steady beat like footfalls of the divine. Viracocha descends the steps. Children scatter petals in his path. A priest offers a bowl of crushed cochineal, red like birth, like blood, like earth's first clay. Viracocha dips a finger and traces a spiral on the ground. It glows faintly, then vanishes. From behind a pillar, an old man steps forward. His tunic is simple, his eyes cloudy, but in his hands is a bundle wrapped in alpaca wool. Slowly, reverently, he unwraps it. Inside lies a golden mask. It is not ornate, no gemstones, no inlays, just smooth gold, hammered and polished until it mirrors the face of anyone who looks. A child, a farmer, a warrior, a king, all reflected in the same form. all one under the gaze of the Maker. The old man holds it out. Viracocha accepts. He lifts it to the sun. Light spills through its eyes, through its lips. A shaft of radiance bursts from it, striking the temple wall behind him. The gold panels flare like captured lightning. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Then, silence. He lowers the mask, places it on the old man's face, and though the elder trembles, he does not fall. He stands straighter, taller. He closes his eyes and begins to sing. It is a song without words, just tone and breath, but every person knows its meaning. It is the song of a harvest made abundant, of a river kept clean, of enemies turned to allies, of a mountain giving up its stone, of time itself flowing smooth as honey. Viracocha turns and walks through the crowd. They part like reeds on a riverbank. His steps are quiet, but the earth feels them. Behind him, children follow, imitating his stride, their arms raised like wings. In their laughter, something eternal stirs. He walks the road that winds around the outer plaza, passing merchant stalls and stone aqueducts. He pauses at a garden of medicinal plants. A young healer kneels there, grinding herbs. She looks up, startled, then bows her head. Viracocha kneels beside her, points to a blossom half-wilted. She plucks it gently, wraps it in cloth, and offers it to him. He accepts, places it behind her ear, and moves on. Cuzco glows behind him. The golden mask remains, passed hand to hand, each new bearer adding a breath to the song. The city continues to swell, its roads expanding, its temples multiplying, its stories winding outward like rivers from a sacred spring. And Viracocha continues to walk. He does not stay to rule. He does not crown a king or build a throne. He does not write laws. He simply sows light. And in that light, an empire blooms, not from conquest, but from memory, from reverence, from the quiet certainty that the divine once walked among stone walls and sunlit plazas and left behind a rhythm that never stops beating. From the heights of Cuzco to the edge of the sea, the Golden Empire pulses, and somewhere in its veins, the wanderer still walks.
The mountain air shifts, crisp, clean, thin as a blade. Above, the sun winks between moving clouds, casting fleeting light on a trail that winds along the cliffs. Below, the valleys yawn wide, green and gold, stitched with terraces and rivers. The land is vast, the silence deeper still. Here, in these high ridges, the stones speak. Viracocha walks alone. No entourage, no banners, only wind and the crunch of sandals on gravel. His cloak trails behind him, its edges dusted with pollen and ash. In his hand, a staff, not of command, but of remembrance. Its shaft is carved with spirals and constellations, each notch a story etched into time. Ahead, a cluster of stones rises like teeth from the ridge, cyclopean blocks fitted so precisely that even centuries cannot wedge them apart. This is not a city, not a temple. It is older, quieter, a sentinel carved by hands whose names are long forgotten, and whose intentions now echo only in shape and shadow. Viracocha stops at the largest block. It is shaped like a door, though it leads to nothing. A flat expanse of carved stone, with an empty lintel, as if the gods themselves once passed through it and vanished into sky. He places a palm against the stone. It remembers, not in words, but in pressure, in patience, in the way it warms slightly beneath his touch, then cools again, as if reminding him of both presence and distance. The wind hums through the gaps between stones, not howling, not cold, but singing. Not everyone would hear it, but Viracocha listens. He walks through the space where the doorway stands, though there is no wall. On the other side, nothing changes, yet everything does. The ground feels firmer, the air heavier with memory. He climbs higher, past cairns built of stacked stone, each marking some long-ago boundary, some ancient agreement now weathered smooth. In a small clearing, the remains of an altar, just a flat slab surrounded by low rocks. Nothing ceremonial now, just presence. Viracocha kneels. From within his cloak, he removes a handful of pebbles. They are simple, unremarkable, yet each one holds the shape of a place. A river bend, a hilltop, a path between two trees. He places them on the slab, arranging them with care. The wind pauses. One by one, the pebbles tremble. They align themselves, shift, settle into a pattern. A map, but not one of geography, one of memory, of sacred spaces, of where the earth once opened and gods emerged, of where fire was stolen, of where the first tears fell. Each stone marks a story. He touches the center pebble, and the slab beneath it glows faintly. Lines pulse outward like veins, like tributaries. And for a moment, the whole clearing feels alive. This is how memory survives. Not in scrolls, not in names, but in stones. He gathers the pebbles again, each now bearing a faint line of light along its edge. He returns them to the pouch. The map remains, not drawn on the rock, but pressed into it. A faint burn, a trace, enough for those who know how to see. He rises and walks to the cliff's edge. From here, he can see everything. The spine of the Andes, jagged and defiant. Valleys folded like green origami. Glaciers clinging to distant peaks. Villages scattered like beads, smoke curling from thatched roofs. Roads weaving between them. Stone ribbons tracing paths trodden by traders, lovers, warriors, and thieves. Each step a prayer, each stone a witness. He watches the sun dip low. Its rays catch on the temple roofs of far-off Cusco, a golden blink, then gone. Shadows lengthen across the land. Soon the fires will be lit, songs will begin, and in some corners stories will be told of him, of the one who shaped mountains. In a nearby crevice, a young boy emerges, herding a group of llamas. His sandals slap softly on stone. He pauses, seeing the cloaked figure at the cliff. Something in him hesitates, a recognition too deep for language. He says nothing, just bows his head and waits. Viracocha turns. The boy looks up, and their eyes meet. The boy points to the cliff, to a stone carved with spirals. "My grandfather says that's where the world began," he says, voice shy. "He says you came out of that rock." Viracocha doesn't answer. Instead, he walks to the stone, places a hand on it, then steps back. The stone begins to shift. Not much, just a slight settling, a breath of movement, a trick of light, perhaps. But the boy sees it. His eyes widen. And he smiles. Viracocha walks past him, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder, a silent blessing. Then he continues down the path, fading into the dusk. Behind him, the boy sits beside the stone. He watches the sky darken, stars waking one by one. He does not speak. He listens to the silence, to the wind, to the echoes in stone. They say the gods spoke once, not in thunder, but in granite, not in decree, but in presence. And if you listen closely, beneath the noise of the world, you can still hear them. In the place where Viracocha walked, and the stones remember. The jungle presses close, thick, wet, alive. Leaves glisten with dew, and insects thrum like drums in the dark. Ferns the size of warrior shields sway as unseen creatures pass through. Vines twist like serpents across narrow paths. The air hangs heavy, soaked with perfume and rot, breath and blood. And into this living maze, shadows come. They wear armor not born of Andean stone, but of foreign forge. Metal glints not with reverence, but with hunger. Boots crush orchids underfoot. They carry crosses, flags, and fire. The Spaniards. Conquest does not come all at once. It begins with curiosity, then suspicion, then the slow, methodical unweaving of a world. But the land remembers, and so does Viracocha. He watches, unseen, from the ridge above a ravaged village. Smoke coils from blackened thatch. Chickens scatter over broken stones. A shrine lies torn open, its golden offerings gone, its stone guardian smashed. Only a child remains. She stands barefoot in the ashes, clutching a piece of maize, burnt, half-eaten, her face streaked with soot, her eyes dry. She looks up at the ridge. She does not speak. She does not need to. Viracocha walks down the slope. The ground gives slightly underfoot, softened by ash and grief. He steps over a collapsed wall, a charred loom, a broken gourd. The silence is thick, not empty, but full. It vibrates with questions no one dares ask. He kneels beside the child. She offers him the maze. He takes it. And for the first time in an age, he weeps. Not loudly, not theatrically, just a single tear sliding down the face that birthed worlds. It falls on the burnt maize, and the kernel, dead just moments ago, stirs.
It sprouts, tiny, green, defiant. He places it gently on the ground. The child kneels, pressing her fingers into the soil around it. Her touch is steady, reverent. When she looks up again, Viracocha is gone. But she feels him. And so she stays, in the ruins, in the smoke, in the quiet. She sings. It is a small voice, cracked, unsure, but it carries. And the jungle listens. Elsewhere, the invaders move with purpose. They chart paths into the mountains, marvel at aqueducts, pry open temples in search of gleaming wealth. They take without knowing what they take. They kneel to their own god and break the altars of others. They write names on places that already had names. But they do not know the stones listen. They do not see the figures in the mist. They do not hear the wind carrying words not meant for them. In the capital, noble families gather in secret. In whispered tones, they speak of the ancient pact, the old bond between creation and memory. They fear it has been broken. They fear the gods have fled. But in their hearts, the stories burn. One elder, blind from birth, walks the streets each night, tapping the stones with a cane carved long ago. When she taps the right pattern, a shimmer runs through the wall. A doorway opens just wide enough for a dream. She speaks to no one, but those who pass her feel different, lighter, as though something immense has just passed them by. In the highlands, priests bury obsidian discs beneath sacred springs, not to hide them, to preserve them, to offer them back to the mountain. When the world forgets, they say, the mountain will remember. Viracocha moves through these places, not as a conqueror, not as a protector, but as witness. He steps into a half-burnt temple, its walls blackened, its offerings stolen. He kneels and traces a single glyph, just a spiral, almost gone. As he finishes the curve, the soot shifts. The symbol glows faintly, then fades, but the imprint remains. Even ruin can hold memory. Even ashes can carry breath. One night, deep in the jungle, the conquistadors lose their path. Their torches sputter in the damp. The air thickens with sound. Monkeys shriek, frogs call in strange rhythms. One soldier sees a figure in the trees, tall, cloaked, eyes bright as fireflies. He calls out. No answer. He raises his weapon, but the jungle erupts. Rain lashes from nowhere, blinding and cold. The wind howls, tearing branches. Lightning strikes a tree just paces away. In the flash, the figure is gone. The soldiers retreat. Later, one whispers that the god walks again. Another says they saw the forest bow. But in their letters home, they write only of gold. In a hidden valley, children gather in a circle of stones. An elder tells them of a time when the land breathed with the voice of a man who was not a man. They listen, wide-eyed, barefoot. At the story's end, the elder pauses and says, "He's still here." A girl raises her hand. "How do we know?" The elder smiles. "Because we're still here." And that is enough. Viracocha walks through a field of tall grass, lit only by stars. The wind moves around him, carrying whispers. Some are prayers, some are curses, some are simply memories, lost languages, forgotten names, broken songs. He gathers them, places them gently in the folds of his cloak. He walks on, not to fix, not to punish, but to carry, to remember. Because even when the temples fall, even when the masks are melted down, even when the songs go silent, he remains. The first breath, the last silence, the shadow behind the flame. A bell rings across the valley. Its tone is unfamiliar, foreign, iron striking iron in a rhythm not born of stone flutes or reed pipes. The sound cuts through the morning mist, drifting over tiled rooftops and wooden crosses. In the village below, a new church stands atop the bones of an older one. Where once a temple glowed with obsidian light, now a nave stretches skyward in whitewashed lines. Spanish saints line the walls. Their faces are pale, their robes stiff, their halos too bright. But beneath the plaster, beneath the altar, beneath even the foundation stones, older things breathe. Syncretism, a merging of gods, a folding of faiths, not in peace, in survival. Viracocha moves through this new world like smoke through cracks. In the church's courtyard, he watches as a boy draws a spiral in the dust with his toe. The priest scolds him gently, then brushes it away. But the dust remembers. And the boy, he smiles when no one is looking and draws it again on the underside of a pew. The symbols live now in hidden places. A cross carved over a doorway, but behind it, just faintly, the curled tail of an ancient feline still lingers. In the nave, a statue of the Virgin Mary holds the child, but if you look closely, the hem of her robe flows like water. Her crown echoes the rays of Inti, the sun god. And in her eyes, carved with care by native hands, there is a sadness older than Bethlehem. In the village square, a festival begins. Its name is Christian now. The hymns are Latin, but the dances, those are older. Women in brilliant skirts spin like sunflowers, their patterns woven in the same shapes once carved into the temple walls. Men wear masks with bird faces, condors, eagles, hawks. Their feathers are fake now, made of cloth and color, but their movements still remember flight. Viracocha walks the square. He is invisible, but not absent. He steps between stalls of roasted maize and coca leaves, between drummers and fire throwers, past the mayor giving thanks in two tongues, Spanish and Quechua. A girl places a garland on a saint statue. Her fingers hesitate. Then she whispers a name not on any church record. Apu. Not a name for God, a name for mountain. The priest nearby hears. He frowns, but he does not stop her. Because he too has seen things. Once, on a journey to the highlands, his horse refused to cross a certain pass.
A cloud had settled there, low, thick, heavy with scent, and through it a figure had stood, cloaked, watching. The priest had bowed his head, though he hadn't meant to. Something in him had remembered the stories the locals told, the stories he was taught to silence. But stories do not die when told in whispers. In a quiet village chapel, a woman places a candle at the foot of a wooden cross. Then, with practiced fingers, she scatters a few grains of quinoa beneath it. Just a pinch, just enough. An offering her grandmother taught her. The candle flickers once, blue at its base. She nods, satisfied. The gods are listening. They listen differently now. Not in open worship, but in fragments, in patterns woven into cloth, in lullabies sung in Quechua to babies baptized in Spanish, in stories told at night, beginning with a cross and ending with a serpent carved in stone. Viracocha gathers these fragments. He moves like wind through a tapestry. In a field on the edge of town, old men play flutes at dusk. The tunes are half remembered, the instruments cracked, but the music still curls upward, rising through the maize stalks, past the eucalyptus trees, into the sky. And far above, a condor wheels. It circles once, twice, then vanishes behind a cloud. In the capital, colonists build universities where priests once chanted. Books replace prayer bowls, paper replaces stone. They write of conquest in gilded volumes. They draw maps where rivers gain Spanish names. But beneath the parchment, beneath the ink, the shape of the land has not changed. The mountains still stand, and they still remember the God who walked among them. In a convent garden, a novice digs in the earth. She plants roses as she was told. But buried in the soil, she finds something, a shard of pottery, painted with a spiral. She holds it in her palm. It is warm. She does not know why, but she slips it into her pocket. That night, she dreams of a lake wrapped in mist, of a tall figure made of breath and fire, of a voice that says no words, but fills her with something she cannot explain. She wakes crying. She does not tell the Mother Superior, but she prays longer the next morning. And when she waters the roses, she sings in Quechua. In time, the Spaniards claim victory. They crown viceroys. They melt down the gold. They force the tongue of Castile into the mouths of children. But they do not know what survives in silence. Viracocha no longer appears in form, but he is everywhere. In the curve of a stone too perfect for accident. In the pattern of weaving passed from mother to daughter. In a song hummed with no words. In a face glimpsed in smoke. He waits not to be worshipped, but to be remembered. And the people, though they may not speak his name aloud, remember him still. They remember in clay, in water, in shadow. He is not lost, only hidden, like a seed sleeping in the soil, waiting for the sun to rise again. The wind moves differently here. It whistles not through cities or fields, but along empty ridges. over snow-streaked slopes and cratered passes. Here, the Andes stand at their most silent, bare, immense, and still. The peaks rise like frozen waves. Their breath is thin, their silence absolute. And beneath them, stories sleep. High above the clouds, where even llamas hesitate to tread, Viracocha walks once more. His cloak billows behind him, catching glints of sun and frost. His steps leave no mark, but the mountains know. They feel the rhythm in his gait, the gravity of a being older than stone. He passes a rock marked with ochre spirals, half faded, half remembered. No one has touched it in 100 years, yet it hums softly as he nears, like an old friend waking from a dream. He stops beside a glacier. It cracks in slow rhythm, sighing under the weight of centuries. He places a hand on its surface. Beneath it lie bones, children wrapped in cloth, offerings to the mountains, sacrifices made long ago when gods still answered directly. Their faces still serene, their tiny sandals still woven with care. He kneels, not in mourning, in reverence. These were not deaths of cruelty. They were gifts, given with trembling hands and tear-soaked prayers. A way to keep the sky from falling, to ask for rain, for sun, for life. And somewhere in the ice, the mountain murmurs back. A storm gathers at the horizon, not loud, not fast, just steady, as if called. He rises and walks along the ridge. Below, a village clings to the mountainside. Smoke rises from small homes. A woman kneels beside a terrace, planting potatoes. Her hands are cracked. Her back is bent. She hums a tune older than language, a lullaby to the land. And though she cannot see him, she pauses, looks up, her fingers still. She squints toward the ridge, as though sensing movement not of this world. Then she nods once and returns to her planting. Further along, Viracocha reaches a cave mouth half hidden by stones. He enters. Inside, the light fades to nothing. The walls close in, wet, cool, rough with forgotten symbols. Spirals, eyes, wings. A condor carved upside down. A serpent coiled into the shape of a seed. He walks deeper. The tunnel turns, then opens into a chamber. At its center, a pool of still water. The air is perfectly still. He approaches. The surface reflects not his face, but the past. Cities built, temples raised, gold carried down mountains, processions under full moons, and then ships, guns, smoke, the collapse, the fading. And yet, there are children dancing in the plaza. There are weavers still tying ancient knots. There are songs still rising at dusk. He kneels beside the water, places his palm on its surface, and speaks. Not aloud, not in any tongue, but in vibration, in memory, in the language of stone and starlight. The water ripples, and from its depths rises a single breath of mist. It curls upward, twines around his hand, and disappears into the air. He rises. The cave hums behind him, but he does not turn back. Outside, the storm arrives. Snow begins to fall, quiet, slow, sacred. He lifts his face to the sky. Each flake touches him and vanishes. Each one carries a story of a village, a carving, a whispered prayer, of a god once seen walking through firelight.
And beneath these peaks, where the silence is total and the winds howl only when they must, the truth remains. Viracocha is not a memory. He is a current, a pulse, a breath moving beneath the stones. In the salt flats of the south, a herder teaches his son to read clouds. In a jungle town, a school teacher draws a spiral on the blackboard and doesn't explain it. In Cuzco, a street musician plays a bamboo flute. No one pays attention, but the notes linger longer than they should. These are not coincidences. They are echoes, whispers beneath the snow, songs sung beneath the peaks. The gods were never truly gone. They simply stepped into the stone, waiting for the world to listen again.
Night falls across the Andes, vast and velvet. The stars ignite one by one, patient and ancient, scattering across the black like seeds from the hand of a quiet god. Below, the mountain towns flicker with small fires, kitchens, shrines, memory. The wind glides gently between peaks as though humming an old lullaby. Somewhere between sky and stone, Viracocha walks for the last time. Not because he has grown weary, but because his journey has circled back to its beginning. He returns to the lake. Lake Titicaca, still as glass, waiting in silence. Its surface reflects the starlit sky so perfectly, it's as if the world has been turned upside down. The moon hangs low, casting a long silver trail toward the distant shore. Reeds sway like whispering priests, and on the water a single reed boat waits, just as it did when this all began. Viracocha steps aboard. No paddle, no sail. The water knows his weight. It carries him gently forward through mist and memory. On the far shore, the ruins await. Silent walls of stone, carved figures in the shapes of gods. The same doorway he once passed through still stands, its threshold worn smooth by sun and storm. As he steps ashore, the earth shivers, not with fear, with recognition. The courtyard is empty, yet filled with presence. Here every wall hums with the breath of those who came before, the builders, the carvers, the singers. Their echoes hang like incense in the air. He walks slowly now. Every footstep feels like a bell. At the center of the plaza, a great circle of stone. In its middle, the obsidian disc, weathered but unbroken. It reflects not just the sky, but something deeper, something within. He kneels beside it, places his hand flat upon its surface, and the song begins. Soft, not music, not speech, but a vibration, a warmth, as if every stone in the Andes, every grain of maize, Every breath ever drawn by mortal lungs is singing together, not to him, with him. It is a song of fire and frost, of valleys and peaks, of sorrow and celebration, a song of mothers holding children, of old men tending fields, of weavers and warriors and those who remember. It has no beginning, no end. It simply is. He closes his eyes, and the world leans in. In a far village, a girl hears it in her dream and wakes with tears. In a city plaza, a boy stops mid-step, turns and stares at the mountains. In a monastery, a novice lights a candle and forgets why. And in 1,000 hearts across the land, something stirs. Not knowledge, not doctrine, but remembering. Viracocha rises. The disk's light fades, the song remains. He walks to the lake's edge once more. The boat is gone. He does not need it now. He steps onto the water. It holds him. Each step a ripple, each ripple a note. He walks out into the lake, into the mist, into the stars, slowly, steadily, until he is no longer visible. Only the echoes of his footsteps remain, widening across the surface. Then, stillness. The stars shimmer, the lake breathes, the world waits. But the song never ends. It carries in the wind, in the mountains, in the silent strength of stone, and in the hearts of all who still walk this land, barefoot on terraces, hands dusty with earth, eyes raised toward the peaks. He lives. Not as myth, not as memory, but as song, everlasting. The Andes sleep beneath their mantle of snow, timeless and watching. Rivers still carve their ancient paths, tracing the same routes once walked by farmers, messengers, and gods. Somewhere, a child hums a tune their grandmother never taught them, yet they know it, somehow. A note passed down not in words, but in the shape of breath. Viracocha is gone, and yet not. His name fades from pages, but endures in stone. His face vanishes from shrines, but returns in dreams. He walks no longer in form, but in rhythm, in the heartbeat of a mountain, in the hush before rain, in the silence that wraps a glacier before it breaks. His gift was never dominion. It was memory. He gave the people not only fields and fire, not only tools and cities, but a way of being, a story carried in the body, in the soil, in the pulse of things too deep for language. Empires rose, empires fell. Names were rewritten, gold was stolen, tongues were replaced. But the song remains, subtle, enduring, quiet as stone. It lives in every spiral carved behind church walls, in every whispered prayer offered to both mountain and cross, in every offering of coca leaves placed beside a spring, in the way the wind curves around the peaks, like fingers remembering the shape of a familiar face. We do not always see the divine, but we feel it. And if we listen, truly listen, beneath the silence, beneath the noise, we may yet hear it. The song of the first creator. The song of the last witness. The everlasting presence of Viracocha. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If this story moved you, consider subscribing, because there are still echoes to explore and more forgotten voices waiting to be heard.